Ma'am, please don't go. Those words cut through the December air, sharper than the cold itself. Spencer's hand closed gently, but firmly around my wrist, just as I was stepping into the taxi. Not the touch of a man being rude. Not the grasp of someone panicking. It was the grip of someone who knew something and was willing to risk everything to stop it. I froze. The taxi door hung open. The engine hummed impatiently. My black suitcase, his suitcase really, the one Jared had packed for me, sat, already loaded in the trunk. Like a decision that had been made without my consent. Behind me, I felt Jared before I heard him. I had spent 34 years learning the weight of his presence. Spencer, Jared said sharply. Irritation barely hidden behind politeness. Let go. We're running late. Spencer didn't look at him. His eyes stayed locked on mine, dark, serious, lined with years of quiet observation. His voice dropped low, urgent. Just trust me, Mrs. Holloway. Please, don't get in that car. My heart stumbled. Nothing like this had ever happened before. Spencer was our gardener. 15 years, professional, quiet, invisible. If you weren't paying attention. And yet, in that moment, he looked more like a guard at the edge of a cliff than a man tending roses. Paris Lorraine Jared had announced that morning, arms wide, smiling like he'd gifted me the moon. Just you and me. A second honeymoon. A second honeymoon. I should have known something was wrong the moment I saw the suitcase by the door. Jared never packed. Jared never rushed. Jared never planned surprises that didn't benefit him. I looked from Spencer to my husband. Jared was smiling, but his eyes kept flicking to his watch. That smile after 3 decades of marriage, knew it well. It wasn't excitement. It was completion, like a man watching the final piece slide into place. Spencer, I said softly, forcing calm into my voice. I'll be fine. His fingers tightened, just a fraction. Ma'am, take care of the roses while I'm gone, I whispered. Then, gently freed my wrist. I turned toward the taxi. My body moved forward, but my instincts screamed backward. And for the first time in years, I listened. Actually, I said, turning around. Louder now, I forgot my reading glasses. You know I can't sleep on planes without them. Jared's smile twitched. Lorraine, we don't have time. It'll take a minute, I insisted, already walking away. Get settled. I'll be right back. Inside the house, everything looked the same. The yellow curtains. The ceramic rooster collection. 34 years of routines baked into the walls. I grabbed my glasses from the nightstand. Then I didn't go back. Instead, I slipped out the back door and hurried toward the guest house, the one built for family who never visited. My heart pounded like it hadn't since childbirth. From the guest house window, I watched Jared paced, checked his phone, scowled, not worried, annoyed. After 20 minutes, he dismissed the taxi. Then he made a call. Sharp gestures, tight shoulders, a voice meant to fix a problem. Me. An hour later, a vehicle far heavier than a taxi rolled into our driveway. A black van, tinted windows. My breath stopped. 2 men stepped out. One stranger, and one man I recognized instantly. Marcus, Jared's best friend, and he was carrying a black case. That's when I understood something terrible. The Paris trip was never meant for me. The van door slammed and my front door opened. The black van sat in our driveway like it had always belonged there. Not parked crooked, not rushed. Perfectly aligned, nose facing the house. Engine still warm as if it expected to leave again soon. From the safety of the guest house window, I pressed my fingers into the wooden sill and leaned forward, afraid to breathe too loudly. My own home felt foreign now, like I was watching someone else's life through glass. The first man stepped out slowly, tall, lean, mid-40s, maybe. A face so ordinary it slid right off the mind. The kind of man you pass in a grocery store aisle and forget. Before you reach the register. That terrified me more than anything. Then Marcus emerged. Marcus, who had stood beside Jared at our wedding, hand on his shoulder, promising loyalty for life. Marcus, who'd eaten my pot roast, teased me about burning the edges, laughed too loudly at his own jokes while draining our wine. Marcus, carrying a black case like it held something delicate or dangerous. My stomach dropped. Why was he here? Why now? And why did my husband look relieved when he opened the front door? Even from 50 feet away, I could see it. Jared's shoulders relaxed. His mouth curved upward. He stepped aside quickly, ushering them in like he didn't want the neighbors to notice. The door closed. I flinched at the sound. Inside, shadows moved behind the living room curtains, shapes crossing, furniture shifting. At one point, I saw the tall stranger adjusting something near our fireplace, setting up what looked like a tripod. A tripod. My pulse hammered in my ears. What were they recording? 30 minutes passed like a held breath. My legs went numb. My thoughts spiraled, tumbling over themselves. Had I misunderstood everything? Was this about Jared's work? Some insurance thing? A misunderstanding blown out of proportion by nerves. Then I remembered Spencer's face, that grip, that plea, and the way Jared had never once called my name while I was gone. They've been watching me, I said, my voice barely there. Documenting, Spencer corrected softly. Everything you say. Everything you forget. Everything you don't forget, but can be twisted. My knees gave out, and I sank onto the edge of the bed. Why? I whispered. Why would he do this? Spencer hesitated. Then he asked a question that changed everything. Mrs. Holloway, you inherited money from your parents a few years ago, didn't you? I nodded slowly. $2 million. And it's still in your name, he said gently. Not joint. My stomach dropped. How do you? I helped you carry the papers in from the car last month, he said quietly. Some fell out. I saw the statements. The room spun. And, Spencer continued, his voice heavy now. Your husband has gambling debts. The words landed like a death sentence. I've seen the letters, he added. Unmarked envelopes. Shaking hands. Late night calls. I covered my mouth. All at once, the Paris trip made sense. The cameras, the doctors, the black van. He wasn't sending me on a vacation, I said slowly. Spencer met my eyes. He was trying to send you away. Forever. Something inside me hardened. Not fear. Focus. How long do we have? I asked. Spencer checked his watch. An hour? Maybe 2. Good, I said, standing. Because if he thinks I'm confused. I looked around my house with new eyes. Then I'm about to show him just how wrong he is. And that was the moment I decided I would let him think his plan was working. When Jared came back, I was ready. Not ready like a soldier with a weapon. Ready like a woman who had finally stopped begging reality to be kinder than it was. I heard his car before I saw it. The familiar crunch of tires on gravel. The click of the front door. His footsteps too fast, too loud. Lorene, he called. Lorene. I waited 5 seconds too long before answering. I'm here, I said, letting my voice wobble just enough. He found me in the hallway, standing still. Clutching the wall like I wasn't sure it would hold me up. His face flooded with relief, so convincing it almost fooled me. There you are, he said, pulling me into his arms. Where did you go? I was worried sick. Worried? I swallowed the urge to laugh. I don't know, I whispered. I felt dizzy. Everything felt strange. His body stiffened just for a moment. Strange how? He asked carefully. I pulled back and looked at him the way a frightened child looks at an adult. Confused, searching. We were going somewhere, I said slowly. You kept saying a word. Pa Paris. His eyes lit up, not with love. With confirmation. Yes, he said softly. That's right, sweetheart. We were going to Paris. But I couldn't remember why, I continued. And suddenly there were so many people. Signs, noises. I panicked. I let my hands shake. I took a taxi home. I finished. Then I couldn't find my keys. I've been sitting in the guest house trying to remember what's wrong with me. Silence. Heavy, thick. Then Jared smiled. It wasn't wide. It wasn't cruel. It was satisfied. Oh, Lorene, he said, guiding me toward the couch. I think you're more tired than you realize. There it was. The tone, gentle, patronizing. Final. We should see a doctor, he added. Just to be safe. That night, I lay beside him in bed, staring at the ceiling while his breathing evened out. Every few hours, he got up quietly and checked on me, making sure I was still there. Still compliant. Still his. The next morning, he brought me my vitamins with breakfast. I smiled and palmed them instead. Later, I handed them to Spencer through the back door. Have these tested? I said. Please. 3 days later, the results came back. Sedatives. Cognitive suppressants. Measured. Precise. Designed to make a woman my age look like she was slipping. He's been drugging me, I said calmly. Spencer nodded. Sophisticated doses, and suddenly, everything became clear. This wasn't impulsive. This was planned. Which meant somewhere in this house, there was a timeline. And I was running out of time. The doctor's appointment was scheduled for tomorrow. Thursday night. Poker night. Jared left the house whistling, kissing my forehead like a man unburdened by guilt. I watched from the doorway, smiling faintly. Playing the part he'd written for me. Confused, fragile, manageable. The moment his taillights disappeared, Spencer and I moved. He locked the doors. I went straight to Jared's office. I had avoided that room for years. It had always felt like his territory. Dark wood. Tidy shelves, authority disguised as order. Now it felt like a crime scene waiting to be uncovered. Spencer handed me a flashlight. Top drawer, he said quietly. Locked? He taught me how to open it with a hairpin. Inside was my life rewritten. Folders, dates, notes in Jared's careful handwriting. Episode, agitation, kitchen knife. Disorientation, forgot neighbor's name. Aggressive paranoia, believes she is being watched. I sat down hard. None of it had ever happened. Witness, Marcus. Every page felt like a slap. Then I found the file labeled Timeline. My hand shook as I opened it. Phase 1, Established Decline Complete. Phase 2, Psychiatric Confirmation, December 15th. Phase 3, Emergency Commitment. Phase 4, Transfer to Long-Term Care. Phase 5, Financial Access, tomorrow. Tomorrow was December 15th. I kept flipping. Contracts with Millbrook Manor. Signed, paid. A life insurance policy, $1 million taken out in my name. Then, my obituary. Written in advance. I didn't cry. I felt something colder. Clearer? He planned to erase me, I said quietly. Spencer nodded. Yes, ma'am? I photographed everything. Every lie. Every signature. Then I put it all back exactly where it had been. That night, I slept beside my husband like a woman who had already survived him, because tomorrow, he would try to bury me alive. And tomorrow, I would walk into that doctor's office prepared to end him. The doctor smiled when he saw me. He already knew my diagnosis. Dr. Harrison's office smelled like polish and power. Mahogany desk. Framed diplomas. Soft lighting meant to calm people who were about to hear something devastating. Everything about the room whispered *authority*. Jared held my hand the entire time. A performance? She's been declining, he said gently, sorrow carefully measured. Confused, disoriented, aggressive at times. Dr. Harrison nodded before even looking at me. That told me everything. Mrs. Holloway, he said kindly, do you know what year it is? I hesitated. 1990. Something, I murmured. Jared's thumb pressed into my knee. Encouragement. The tests continued. I failed them with precision. Too much confusion would rush the process. Too little would delay it. Dr. Harrison scribbled notes. Early onset dementia, he said. Millbrook Manor, he recommended. Immediate care. That was when I spoke. Doctor, I said clearly. My husband has been drugging me. The room froze. Jared squeezed my arm hard. Dr. Harrison smiled. Paranoia is common. I placed the pill bag on the desk. Tested. Independent lab. Then the recorder. Then the documents. And finally, Spencer. The door opened. A social worker. A police officer. The web collapsed. Jared shouted. Dr. Harrison went pale. I stood. I am not confused, I said. I am finished. 6 months later, I stood in a garden that was finally mine. 6 months later, I stood barefoot in damp soil, watching Spencer plant roses. Not our roses, mine. The house behind me was smaller than the one I'd lived in for 24 years. But it breathed easier. No cameras. No locked drawers. No pills disguised as love. Just open windows, honest light, and silence that didn't feel like punishment. Jared was in prison, 8 years. When the judge read the sentence, he didn't look at me. Not once. The man who had written my obituary couldn't face the woman who had rewritten his future. Dr. Harrison lost his license. Millbrook Manor was shut down pending investigation. Marcus took a plea deal and testified. 12 other women were pulled back from the edge of disappearance, some just in time, some not. That truth still sits heavy in my chest. Mrs. Holloway, Spencer called, brushing dirt from his hands. These roses will bloom beautifully. I smiled. They already are. I funded a legal foundation with my settlement. Quiet help. Fast help. For people whose instincts were screaming but whose voices were being ignored. Women like I had been. Sometimes, I sit on the porch at sunset and think about Paris, not the city, the trap, and I realize something that still takes my breath away. The moment Spencer grabbed my wrist wasn't the moment my life almost ended. It was the moment it finally began. I wasn't saved by youth, or strength, or money. I was saved by instinct and by finally listening to it. If you're watching this and something in your life feels off, trust that feeling. And if you're wondering how far this story traveled, tell me the city you're listening from. Because if my story reached you, maybe it arrived exactly where it needed to. People think the hardest part is the moment you discover the betrayal. It isn't. The hardest part is the quiet that comes after. When the noise of courtrooms fades. When headlines stop calling you brave. When everyone assumes healing is automatic just because justice was served. Some nights, I still wake up reaching for the bedside lamp, half expecting to see a tiny red light blinking back at me. Old fear has muscle memory. Spencer says that's normal. Trauma doesn't leave politely. It lingers, checking if you're still paying attention. But every morning, I wake up in my own bed, in a house that belongs to no one else's plan. And I remind myself, I am still here, That matters. I get letters now, women, daughters, granddaughters. I think my mother is being manipulated. My aunt suddenly has a new doctor. They keep saying she's confused, but she knows exactly what's happening. I read every single one. Sometimes I can help, sometimes I can't, but I always write back. Because silence is how this kind of evil survives. One afternoon, as Spencer and I sorted mail at the kitchen table, he paused and looked at me. You know, he said gently, you could have disappeared quietly. No one would have blamed you. I nodded. That's why I didn't. There is a lie we tell older women that peace means shrinking, that safety means compliance, that love means endurance. I believed that lie for decades. I confused patience with virtue, silence with loyalty, comfort with love. What I know now is this. Love does not require you to disappear. Care does not need secrecy. And respect never asks you to doubt your own mind. Sometimes, people ask if I miss Jared. The answer surprises them. I don't miss him. I grieve the woman I was when I believed in him. But grief isn't weakness. It's evidence of growth. The roses Spencer planted are blooming now full. Unapologetic, thorny if necessary. I like that about them. They don't ask permission to exist beautifully. Neither do I anymore. And if my story leaves you with anything, let it be this. If someone tells you you're confused but you feel clarity burning in your chest, believe the fire, not the voice trying to extinguish it. Because the most dangerous moment isn't when someone tries to silence you. It's when you almost believe them. There is a strange grief that comes with survival. Not the grief of what was taken from you, but the grief of what almost was. Sometimes, while folding laundry or trimming the herbs by the kitchen window, I catch myself thinking, I could have vanished, quietly, legally, completely. The world would have nodded in sympathy and moved on. She was ill. He did everything he could. Those sentences were already prepared for me. What haunts me isn't how close I came to losing my life. It's how close I came to losing my voice. Because once your voice is gone, everything else follows. I think about Paris sometimes not as a city, but as a symbol. A place I was meant to disappear into. A foreign language, strange streets. A perfect setting for confusion. I was never meant to come home. The realization still makes my hands go cold. But here's the quiet miracle no one talks about. After everything is stripped away, you get to choose what comes back. I chose honesty. I chose small rooms filled with light instead of large houses filled with secrets. I chose people who ask instead of decide. I chose mornings where my thoughts are my own and evenings where silence feels like rest, not threat. Spencer once asked me if I was angry. I thought about it for a long time before answering. No, I said finally. Anger ties you to the past. I'm not tied anymore. What I feel instead is something steadier. Respect for myself. At this age, that is a radical thing. I respect the woman who hesitated at the taxi door. I respect the fear that spoke up when logic tried to quiet it. I respect the strength it took to pretend I was breaking, while secretly holding myself together. And most of all, I respect the woman who now speaks. without apologizing, for the space her voice takes. If you're listening to this and thinking, I'm too old to start over, let me tell you something gently, but firmly. You are only too old to continue disappearing. Because the final truth isn't about what he did to me. It's about what I finally did for myself. If I could sit across from the woman, I used to be the one standing half inside a taxi with a suitcase she didn't pick up, wouldn't warn her, I wouldn't frighten her. I would simply say, listen. Listen to the pause in your chest. Listen to the man who sees you when others don't. Listen to the discomfort you keep calling gratitude. Because here is the truth, I earned the hard way. Not all harm announces itself as cruelty. Sometimes it arrives dressed as care. Sometimes it uses the language of love. What nearly destroyed me wasn't violence. It was permission. The permission I gave someone else to narrate my life. Jared didn't wake up one morning and decide to erase me. He learned slowly that I would let him speak for me, decide for me, define me. And when money entered the picture, he realized how easy it would be to make that permanent. That knowledge changed how I see the world. Now, when someone interrupts me, I keep talking. When someone dismisses my concern, I ask why. When someone tells me I'm overreacting, I ask them to explain exactly what reaction would be acceptable. Clarity is inconvenient to people who benefit from your silence. The foundation now helps dozens of families every year. Quiet interventions, documentation, protection. Sometimes, all it takes is one person believing the truth loudly enough to break a lie that's been growing for years. Spencer still tends the garden. We work side by side not because I need him, but because I choose him. That distinction matters. I am not brave because I survived. I am brave because I stopped cooperating with my own erasure. And if there is a moral to my story, it is this. Your life does not belong to the person who knows you longest. It belongs to the person who treats your clarity as sacred, including yourself. And now, before I end this, there's one final thing I want to say to Asterisk. You quote, if you're still here with me, listening to the end of this story, then let me speak to you not as a character, not as a cautionary tale, but as a woman who almost disappeared and chose not to. I don't know where you are right now. Maybe you're in a crowded city, headphones on, pretending you're not affected. Maybe you're alone in a quiet room, feeling something tighten in your chest that you can't quite name. Maybe you're watching from a place I've never been to and may never see. But if this story reached you, it reached you for a reason, because somewhere in your life, there is a moment that feels asterisk off asterisk. A conversation that leaves you smaller. A decision made without you. A concern dismissed as confusion. A silence that costs you something every time you keep it. I want you to hear this clearly. You are not imagining it. Clarity does not arrive loudly. It arrives as discomfort you can no longer ignore. I was 64 years old when I learned that starting over doesn't require youth, it requires truth. It requires the courage to stop cooperating with what is slowly undoing you. My husband tried to erase me with paperwork and pills. But what saved me wasn't evidence. It was instinct. A gardener's hand on my wrist. A pause at the taxi door. A choice to listen to myself for the first time in decades. That is where power lives. Not in anger. Not in revenge. But in the quiet decision to say, asterisk no. This is my life, asterisk. Today, my name is on my mailbox. My voice is my own. And my days belong to me. If you take nothing else from my story, take this. You do not need permission to exist fully. You do not need approval to protect yourself. And you are never too old, too late, or too far gone to choose yourself. If this story reached you, tell me the city you're listening from. Not so I can count views. So I can know how far truth can travel when a woman finally speaks. Thank you for listening until the end.